Welcome to Have You Raised a Ticket, the podcast about people and leadership within government, digital data and technology. Mr. Mann, how are you doing?
I'm all good. I have not melted in the summer heat. We are recording this as we enter another phase of warmth here in the UK.
Did you have you raised a ticket this week?
I unfortunately had to raise several tickets. I built my first AI agent this week.
You didn't?
That's how bored I was.
Okay.
So, yeah. There you go.
I couldn't actually get into the studio earlier on, and I nearly phoned you to go, I can't get into the studio, but then I did, and that's why our guests are already here. We have with us Sarah Williams, the goddess of all customer service, former Westminster doyen, and David Catling, new to the sector, I do believe, and we're going to find out exactly why he's moved into the public sector, why she's jumped in and out, and really get an idea in terms of leadership, recruitment careers, and why it can be fantastic and fulfilling to have a career in this side of the business. But also, is the grass greener on the other side? Anything from you, Mr. D?
No. I think we should get into it. So I'm going to say, Sarah, who are you? How did you get here?
Wow, that's a big question. But I'm Sarah Williams. I'm currently Director of Customer Experience at Notting Hill Genesis, one of the largest housing associations in London. Today is the end of week 6, so very, very new. My career has taken me across a number of sectors, and I've been in and out of public sector. So I started in banking, then outsourced customer service operations in a global outsourcer. Moved into local government, then into social housing, then back into local government, and now back into social housing. But what I'm really, really proud of the most is that I started on the phone. So I started on the front line in contact centres and then progressed through operational and leadership roles. So I've experienced services both as someone delivering them directly and then also as someone responsible for transforming them. I've spent a significant part of my career in Westminster City Council, and that was leading customer experience teams and digital transformation, and that included bringing together previously separate customer service functions, introducing new digital and AI-enabled capabilities, and redesigning services around residents, and establishing a new customer experience directorate. So now back in housing, where I'm helping to deliver Notting Hill Genesis Residents First ambitions, and that simply means improving how residents experience our service.
All the elements of the front door there, isn't it, into the services on a different way. Joe?
And you're award-winning as well, because, yes. Westminster significantly put them on the map in terms of customer service, really making that, which I don't think people associate with the public sector and especially local government, but award-winning customer service. Tell us about that.
So I'm really proud of the teams at Westminster. Our frontline staff are absolutely amazing. One of the most recent awards that we won at Westminster was for our customer advocacy team, who are a frontline contact centre service who deal with the most vulnerable. So through all of the transformation that we delivered and the implementation of AI, we were able to free up capacity to really focus on those that need us the very most. And we have a wonderful bunch, and now Westminster has a wonderful bunch of 10 customer advocates who I would take with me anywhere I go in a heartbeat, because they really, truly care about supporting the most vulnerable and making sure that they've got all of the support they need when they need it most.
So if we're not careful, I'm just going to end up talking to Sarah Williams, which would be terribly embarrassing. So I'm going to move on to the heroic David Catling.
Well, this is going to be very different, Joe, isn't it? Sarah's just whipped through 20 odd years of working in the public sector. I'm going to have to contribute my 6 months now, aren't I?
It's more than that, isn't it?
Well, no, 7 months actually now.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
seven
okay.
months, which I could thank you for, can't I, Joe?
I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, denial of knowledge, right? So, blimey, so this is going to be very, very different, as you know, Joe. So I started off in the forces. So I had a commission in the parachute regiment.
Did you?
I certainly did. And so that's hence all the scars. And that was a long, long time ago. Mine.
So you jumped out of planes for a living?
I used to jump out of planes for a living, Joe.
By
Oh
choice.
my gosh.
And that's always
by choice. So that probably gives you an insight into my mindset, Darren. Yeah. I don't take risks at all, by the way.
No, not at all.
So, yeah, used to jump out of planes for a living. So I spent a lot of time with the parachute regiment, all different places around the world. And but it was where, through Sandhurst, where I did my commission, it was really where I got my leadership skills from. So I know Sarah's is very much, as she just very elegantly put it, around the work that she does in public sector. Mine's a very, very different background. It's very much a leadership background, dealing with large teams, small teams, but dealing in well, from the forces, really quite difficult situations as well. So that's kind of where it started. I left the forces. I then, Joanne asked me this question. I then was going to go and work for Marconi, and then so resigned my commission, went to start with Marconi. 6 months before I was joined, got made redundant before it even started, and didn't know what to do myself.
What was that? What year was that?
A couple of years ago, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah,
It had a 19 in it. That's all we need to know.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Then into hospitality. So my parents and grandparents are or grandmother, I should say, are chartered accountants. So I've got a family full of bean counters. That's really probably where I started to get my commercialism from. So went into hospitality, started to work with a private equity business, which is probably going back 30 odd years now. So, and then started there was 4 of us, started a small brand called Pitcher and Piano, which you probably may or may not know. So that was one of the brands of my first jump in hospitality, which we then sold to Wolverhampton Dudley, which is now Marston's. So that was so very much an entrepreneur. Then my entrepreneurial spirit then carried through into the rest of my life, really, until I started a hotel group, and my second one that I then was about to sell, working with some quite stellar people. IBM. I was working with IBM Watson back in 2014, so I had the visionary idea of dealing with how do I work with less people, if I'm going to be completely blunt with you. So how can we orchestrate and how can we use AI or neural networks and all of those things to design customer acquisition models, all of the front door stuff that Sarah's talking about, all the different channel management and sentiment analysis and picked up vision AI and all of those things we were doing in 2014. And then put that all the way into the operating businesses, into how managers and staff can then operate the real estate business. Did that, traded that, and then had an exit to a large institutional investor. So had a bit of a break that comes with, and then was approached by private equity to then go in and help to start building have that mindset to go into businesses, triage businesses, and how can I help turn them around. So that's kind of how the technology side become. But I'm very much.
Where are you now?
Very, very much more of a business commercial person. That understands technology and can put and piece stuff together, which then made the choice, and you with your influence, to get me to come into public sector through the fraudulent slip. To then end up at London Borough of Merton, leading the innovation agenda with them.
Famous for Wimbledon as well. But what strikes me with both of you through the core is service, community and people. I mean, that is a real connector. You can't be in the parachute regiment and not put service first. I find, that has to be a big connection between the both of you, no?
I think we're both very consumer centric or citizen centric, to speak in public sector parley. So it's we're both. I know Sarah well. Clearly, she's got that in bundles. She'll obviously tell you herself. But from my perspective, it's kind of. I think coming from a business perspective, you have to design around the customers, because if you don't have a business. So it's understanding those what the behavioural traits are, the purchase points, all of those different bits and pieces, and how people function.
It's how it affects people, isn't it? At the end of the day, and even private and public sector, and you can feel that from your history around hospitality and then moving through. How does it affect people? And Sarah, you're seeing that and doing something about it, not just with like you said, the very direct contacts, but then how do you change that with the technology we're seeing develop?
Yeah, absolutely. And in everything I've done throughout my career, it's also always been about people, process and technology. And I guess I've never deliberately thought about sector or had my career journey mapped out for me, but I was always really deliberate about the type of challenge that I wanted. For some reason, I've always been drawn to complex organisations, but ones where service really matters deeply to people and where there is a real need for transformation. So I tend to look for roles where I can bring those disciplines together, customer experience, digital technology, data, organisational change, and sometimes the opportunities find me. So the role for me has to be really meaningful, the real complex problems that need to be solved. And I want to be where I can really make a difference. And that can be in both the private or public sector.
So what surprised you the most when, we're not going to talk about the current role because I think you're probably just still doing your as-is analysis and we're not there yet. But in terms of joining Westminster, what surprised you the most when you got there? Because you've left this amazing legacy there. And I'm not, singing your praises because you're on the podcast. I know for a fact that has happened from other people who've advocated for it, plus the industry endorsement as well. So what surprised you the most about the folks that you met there?
It was more the complexity.
Okay.
That really surprised me. Westminster is an incredibly complex place. And from the outside, people can assume that it's because it's bureaucratic and they're overly cautious and people are resistant to change. But once you're in the organisation, you understand that people have to be cautious because the decisions that they make have consequences right across a much wider system. And that whole systems approach was very new to me. Really being able to understand where a small change in a customer journey might actually affect vulnerable residents over here.
Give us an example. I love an example.
Oh, goodness. So if we decide to, digitize a process, and actually then restrict how people can interact in a particular part of a journey, it might mean that we've designed something so badly that we're not meeting the accessibility needs. If we're not designing journeys with accessibility in mind from the very start, if we're not designing for the edge case, then we can exclude people in terms of being able to access the service. So you've always got to make sure when I look at designing journeys, whether that is digital or on the telephone, that actually there's always a way for somebody to have that human connection. So if the digital journey doesn't work for everyone, because sometimes you can't make it work for everyone, that there's always a way for that hand-holding, for that care and support, and for that proactive help for the most vulnerable. The other thing that really surprised me before you come in is around the level of commitment amongst colleagues. There is a view in the private sector that public servants are lazy. That's absolutely not the case.
Yeah.
The people I met in Westminster and in other public organisations that I was in have spent their whole entire careers serving a place or a community that they deeply cared about. So the sense of public service, and also in housing in terms of that social purpose, is incredibly powerful. And I initially felt a bit of a fraud because I joined for very different reasons. When I first moved to London from Northern Ireland, I needed a job and I fell into public sector. So I felt a bit of a fraud because people could really clearly articulate what their social purpose or their public purpose was. And it took me a while to understand what that actually meant for me. And now it's in my DNA.
I completely get it, but I've been a bit of that kind of journeyman as well. So I've gone private and public in education and local government and central government, and then aviation, which was interesting. But when I came into local government and committed into it, one of the things I noticed was it is 6 organisations under one title of the London Borough of. Doing so many very specific targeted things. And David, I don't know if you've seen that, because the challenge that Sarah's overcome is to allow those 6 disparate functions to connect and create those touch points. Is that what you're seeing? Is that your impression as well?
I think what I heard a lot of is what Sarah just said about people think my perceptions were I'm going to come into an organisation where people have been quite lazy. And I thought I need to show some patience with people working here. I probably didn't get it right at the very beginning. Probably some people will tell me I don't get it right now still, but it's a lot of people said about the complexity. I'm going to give a different stance on it, Darren. I'm quite a simple-minded person. It's to try and look at where the patterns are and how can you replicate and how can you scale things I apply a very, very simple mindset to understanding how organised functions, and it's try and break it down just into component parts. So yes, there are complexities. Yeah, there's the detail with each different organisation you ever work with, or if we're talking about Merton, all the different services they provide. But some of the work that I'm starting to see and starting to uncover, especially on an adult social care program I'm running at the moment that Sarah joined with me at Merton, is actually how many underlying patterns there are that can be replicated across all the services, especially when you're talking about technology and the different scalable solutions that you can start to apply. So yeah, I don't buy into it, if I'm to be honest with you. I'm a person that always probably says, but why? You need to tell me why for me to believe you why. For them to be able to start to change the how. So yeah, there are complexities, but I think if you can really simplify, break it down into smaller parts, and then understand where all the bits come together, as you do that. And I mean, David, I know, is helping you with all of these podcasts from my time at Time Out. That was a global business in every single continent, with 220 million 220 different digital users a month. So, and it was understanding how you can piece all of those things together. And but it's like jigsaw. It's not making a jigsaw.
But I'm going to challenge you on that because I feel I should. Time Out, brilliant example, but you've got people in a certain place and a certain approach, and they're coming to you because they want to have a good time, or they want to see, where can we go out tonight? People are reaching out to Sarah at Westminster because, they've had a fall, or their aunt has had a fall, and they are now suddenly responsible for getting all of the right support package in place, which in and of itself is bonkers. Trying to understand what a person is entitled to, where we go and ask for that help, and how do we then draw down on that help as well, because it's not through the council not wanting to give it, nor I imagine any member of our advocacy team wanting to meet those needs. So it's a different kind of help and support.
It is.
Over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, it is. But every council is being asked the same questions. And therefore we need to be working together to be able to solve that problem once. And that's why Westminster and Merton came together under the adult social care programme, and we did a hackathon, and we ideated how we can solve that exact problem, Joe, at the front door, because trying to navigate the council system and understand whether it's OT you go to, is it housing you go to, is it social services you go to?
What does OT stand for?
Occupational therapists.
No, I learned
fan
that
of
quite recently,
acronyms.
Joe. So I'm learning lots of acronyms. I thought the army had lots of acronyms. So I think local
spell 'em out.
government's very, very just as bad. Yeah.
But what was really good is to see the teams of practitioners in both Merton and Westminster come together to solve those problems.
Did you two work on this together?
We did, yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay, keep going.
There's a reason. I will explain the reason why in a second, Joe.
No, over to you.
I wanted to go faster. So I knew the adult social care program was going to be quite large because of the complexity of the problems and the overspends and the volumes and the increase. And so I needed to go. If I was to approach this program just as one council, wouldn't have learned fast enough. So I wanted to bring in Westminster to do two things. The first thing is to be able to work in parallel with Westminster, so they on the same topic, but different use cases, so a different part of the customer journey. So it's a process that I've started to speak to Merton around bad debt, and again bad debt going across the council is quite large. And I said, well, why can't we work with 32 London boroughs on the same problem? We go too slow. I said, no, you go 32 times faster. And I said it just needs careful management, and if you it's something I wanted to prove working with Westminster, and it worked extremely well. So we did the program. We ended up delivering 8 different use cases that had a total net return on investment of nearly $1 million a year. Still to be substantiated. I know lots of people will be probably pointing the finger at me saying all of this at the moment, but it allowed us, but they're all interchangeable, they're all interoperable. So the solution that Sarah's team came up with was interoperable into the solution that we came up with. And it was a digital solution that allowed people to deflect people coming in and people coming to other social care faster. So it was that learning that went twice as fast. I also wanted to show Merton, a very mature digital organisation, what good looks like.
Westminster's known for that, though. It's been known for that. It's been streets ahead of everybody for some time.
And that was the second part of why I wanted Westminster to come aboard, so I could show my guys what good looks like. And yeah, that's another vital lesson.
That's why me and Joe love doing this podcast, to show off all the stuff that we do when we work together, when we can collaborate. Even if you're not in the collaboration now, this sector can learn from each other. We can learn the lessons together. That's why we love it. And I'm actually going to contact you about this for social care systems that we may be having.
If it's one of the messages that I found when I come in, I'm quite surprised it's not being done enough. I think there's lots of forums that I see, lots of people that come together and talk about stuff.
Are you referring to Lottie and Socrative and the LGPI?
Yeah,
and
all of those groups to come together. But in practice, we're all... I think there's lots of what I'm seeing is lots of people dressing up the problems have all been very different. They're not. We're all sharing a slightly nuanced, yes, absolutely, but the underlying problem is still the same. And you just got to find what that commonality is, and then apply that learning. So a good example of this is asking to do POCs. Why do we need to do PO? Why do we need to do a proof of concept now? Lots of find what somebody else has done and emulate it. Don't waste the time. And it's that type of messaging that I'm going to get across, and that's how we can start to share.
But certainly an interview, that's what we're looking for, is not somebody who's going to reinvent the wheel. We want beg, borrow, steal. That's what I certainly want to hear, and looking over the fence and see who's done it and who can I collaborate with. And certainly I can give you 2 councils on your debt collection who will be delighted to come and have a conversation with you. Sorry, back to you, Darren.
I was going to say, but the other thing is, what didn't work? We tried that. It didn't work. Don't do that. Let's learn those lessons sometimes, because, like you said, reinvent the wheel. Oh, it failed. Oh, no. If only someone had told us. There's plenty of things that don't go right, and we know that, and we learn that together.
This nicely leads us on to culture based on ways of working, really, I feel. That's over to you, Darren. That's your question.
Well, a lot of this is around the kind of the difference that we see in private and public sector. It's like, what do you see the biggest kind of cultural differences in where private sector need to feed the needs of a customer to the resident need in public sector? And I'm sure it's very sharp with you right now, David, but Sarah, you would have seen this as well. Who wants to go first?
I can go first and David can follow. But I think
Story of our lives, Joe.
Yeah.
Oh, listen.
I don't think we've addressed the elephant in the room, Joe.
No, do you
It's
want
not
to
an
do that?
elephant. It's beautiful.
I wouldn't call her that, Darren. She'll get in deep trouble.
Oi, you watch it. You watch it,
Okay, I'm
Catling. I love
leaving.
your wife. Oi. They're married. They're the posh and becks of local government.
For my
Or
sins.
not now.
Sorry, Sarah.
I met Sarah first and was quite taken. And then I met
love
David.
Sarah the most still.
That's right. That's right. No, and I met David and talked to David pretty much every week about stuff and nonsense.
Lots of stuff, Joe's, right?
Yeah. Normally you're helping me with my business. Back to you, Sarah. Sorry.
I've even forgotten what the question was.
Darren, back to you.
Where are those real sharp cultural differences between private sector serving the needs of a customer and us serving a resident?
Yeah, I think David will probably talk a little bit about customer acquisition and why that doesn't happen particularly well in local government or at all.
Darren's favourite line is, "We're not stealing each other's residents." I'm not trying to. Literally, is his favourite line. I put it in this week for you.
I
Sorry.
think private organisations are very, very good at making decisions more quickly because accountabilities are more concentrated on the measures of success. So they look at things like revenue and margin and outcomes. So if a decision supports commercial growth or improves performance, and there's absolutely fewer layers of scrutiny. But back to being in Westminster, I have worked in public organisations that move really quickly when there is a clear outcome and there's strong leadership. If you think about the transformation that we delivered in Westminster over the last couple of years at pace, but still delivering critical services, and during periods of disruption, Darren, do I need to say cyber?
We don't talk about November 25.
Yeah, ingrained in all of our heads. But the public sector can move exceptionally quick when they have to. Think about the COVID pandemic and how we had to face major disruption, not only within our services, but across the whole country and in our lives. But we absolutely had the will, skill and ability to create temporary processes, work across operational boundaries in ways that it's taken organisations years to change. So I think in public sector, there's absolutely innovation, but it's almost always centred around a defined resident problem. How can we make the lives of residents easier, better, longer, healthier, happier?
In private sector, it's called personalisation. So it's it's the same. It's knowing your customer, knowing the citizen in this case, and it's understanding the measures and the digital measures. I mean, crikey, I've been in business for 30 odd years, and it never used to be this way. Digital has helped it enormously. So, but it's, personalisation is the key word here, and private sector have to do that. They have to know who their customer is, otherwise the financials don't follow. Slightly different. It's arguably probably easier in public sector because you don't have to go and acquire them. They're going to come to you, so you don't have the cost of acquiring customers. But it does mean you've got to be ready for them, and it means that's where the personalisation needs to come in. And it's something I don't hear a great deal of, if I'm to be completely honest. I know Sarah will probably throw something sharp at me for saying this, but personalisation, consumer-centric design, understanding the metrics, all of those things, they're all the same. And it allows you to identify the people are.
I think you're right. I think there is that shift. I think personalisation, localisation, hyper-localisation, actually, I think is really close to what local government actually wants to do, and what its resident wants it to do, which is actually a service that fits my needs, is better than a carte blanche. This is what we're going to deliver for everybody. So I always believe there's a strong parallel between that hyper-personalisation and localisation and local government. And the one thing which listeners will have heard me bang on about is, we are the touch point, local government. We are the touch point with most citizens. It's not central government. You don't really see them very often. Local government is where you will have the majority of your interactions with government throughout your life. And I totally agree with your point. It is really around how do we best serve those needs of that individual and what can we do? That's possibly where our larger processes, we fall down on them because we can't personalise more, to the degree I think we probably should do. Darren, I can see you trying to put in.
No, I was going to say to David and possibly Sarah, you're saying, do you see that local government's actually trying to catch up with that private sector ethos of personalisation you mentioned, David? Because I'm seeing that it's starting to move in that direction, and that identification of the individual, and I'm not going to say the golden thread, but that kind of, actually, we need to start to focus more and start to build those metrics. They've already known them there, but they're starting to catch up. Do you get that sense as well?
It's bearing in mind the private sector, we've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
I did a talk with AWS not so long ago, and somebody asked me what was the one thing you'd like me to take away, and I said, start looking out the window and stop looking inwards all the time. Have a look what private sector does. Have a look at what they do well. You've got highly governed areas, insurance, underwriting, all of those different things at banking. They do it. They know you. They know their customer. They put the right product in front of you at the right time. Why can't we be doing that? You know, it's people are going to come to us. So potentially the ask is easier. Cause like I say, because you're not having to search for and acquire them all at the same time. But I are starting to see it, the adult social care program that we've just surfaced and the platforming that the tool, the architecture around is understanding how we do that. The big challenge that I'm finding now is talking about procurement, because the system that we're just starting to design doesn't stay in one service. The problem with adult social care doesn't stay in one service. So of 100% of that cost, who's going to pay for it? And how do we then break it up? So we're talking about indexation now, and how can we then split those costs up? Because everyone's going to share in the value of the solution that we're going to start to create. So it's that kind of thinking. So yeah, it's definitely coming, Darren. I think it's there's lots of bright people that I'm seeing. I was at a Lottie event last week, and it's really refreshing to see some of the, I'm going to say kids. I mean, they're in their late 20s, aren't they? Right? But listening to the ideas, and there were some really good people in that room listening to what they were saying. And so, yeah, the skills there, Darren. It's how does management deal with it? How does leadership deal with it? Is, I think, the biggest challenge.
I actually think increased regulation is forcing us to know our customers, know who our users are, so that when we are deciding how we use public money, that we make sure that we're making those strategic decisions. And you can absolutely only do that when you know who lives in your community, what are their needs, what are their differences, how do we have to tailor solutions, you know, how do we provide the right support in the right area, because what will land well and support the needs of one community will not necessarily meet the needs of the community right next door. And you know that, you know, from your experience, Darren, really clearly.
Yeah, and particularly in London, you see communities sitting side by side that have uniquely different needs. We see that in Kensington and Chelsea. We see that across London.
Yeah.
Walking from a very affluent area into an area which needs a lot more focus, a lot more targeted services from local government. So is that where organisations like local government, councils are seeing the difference? Not a change in sector and culture, but more a change in leadership, a change in the clarity in what they need to try and deliver.
It's probably a bit too early for me to comment on that, and I do know with all of these things, you know, the outcomes are casting the shadows of their leaders, right? So it's they're the ones that tend to set the pace and the direction. I still see lots of hierarchy. I still see command and control. I hear lots of people saying what they think is the right thing, but not actually doing it. And understanding, I hear and see that quite often. So I think from what I'm seeing, and I'm probably the wrong person to ask Darren and Joe, but it's what I'm seeing, and when I speak to I speak to other councils all the time, and central government as well all the time, and that I think is the biggest nut to crack, is how can we make our leaders a bit more braver? How can we get rid of all of the committees and the boards is another thing for me.
Well, there's that political element, though. There is that political element that we're not going to be able to get away from, David. And I think that's driving some of the issues that you're surfacing now.
Yeah, I do see it. And I'm not for one moment thinking it's not a problem, but it's no different from working in a public company where you would be beholden to the shareholders and you're public to the stock market.
But that's a lot easier one to meet, isn't it? It's make us money. Make us money. How do you then describe value when your political leaders are saying, enhance the lives of we want better lives for our residents? But what does that look and feel like?
It's I'm going to probably sound quite abstract, but it's very much another set of rules.
Who's joining us? Who's that?
Sounds like Hugo.
That's our dogs. I'm not going to bring them in on the call.
No, they have to. No, we make them join.
Do you like them joining?
Yeah, we make
them
them
okay,
join.
let me see if I can.
We are a dog-friendly podcast.
Oh, fantastic. Let me see if I can get our German short-haired pointers coming in on a call then. I'll see what I can do.
If they're going to insist on being here, they're going to have to join.
All right, let me see if I can get them. Why don't you speak to Sarah and let me see if I can grab him.
I think we were talking about leadership, weren't we? I think the sector creates the context, but the leadership, really shapes the experience. So the leadership maturity, the clarity of purpose are more important than what the sector is. What is going on?
No, they're not having it. They don't want to join you. They've heard all about you, Joe.
We expect pictures on LinkedIn shortly, David.
Yep, not
That
a problem.
shows a real lack of leadership, not being able to get your dogs to listen to you, David.
Should we move on to another question?
Who's the bad cop in your household when it comes to the dog? Is it you, Sarah, or is it David?
They don't listen to a word I say.
Okay.
They literally do not listen. I'm the one that gives the comfort and the cuddles.
Right.
David gives the orders. Oh,
It's like that in our
There he is.
There we
dog
are.
cruelty.
That's like that in our house. Rosie looks at me like I always say to Lakeisha, "No, you're the bad cop. I'm the good cop." And she went, "Honey, you ain't the cop. You are a social worker. Forget even describing yourself as a cop."
They're the two bad cops.
Oh, they.
Yes, yeah. Oh, they know how to get the ice machine that working out the fridge. They know how to get the water from the fridge. They know how to open bedroom doors.
They're clever.
They are clever.
Yeah, we're just trying
Dotty
now.
and Ducky know how
We're
to
now,
do
we're
that
now
with us.
working on
It's-
Sarah, see if she can do it. Which one?
Yeah.
But she's still
It's
struggling.
pester us until we do it.
Let's get back to political leadership. Sarah, you were saying.
I think for me, when I first joined the public sector, I really struggled with the stakeholder management and how to understand that political environment, and how to get the best out of that political relationship. And it was a real steep learning curve, and in particular in Westminster when the political administration changed. So we'd just got used to working with the existing cabinet when a new cabinet came in, and a new flavour of political direction as well, and having to build those relationships all over again was quite a minefield. And of course Westminster are now in that boat again with a new administration now, for the third time in 9 years. You've got a whole new different cabinet. But what for me is really important is really understanding, as you said, Joe, what they want for their residents, what is their political mandate, what is their manifesto commitments, because that's what, as a non-political leader, you actually have to deliver and embed. But it's also with the view that you're doing the right things for the right reasons, that you're presenting all of the risks in terms of your recommendations, but ultimately you don't make the decisions. You
I love
provide
that.
the recommendations and they make the decisions.
Love that you've touched on that, Sarah, because we don't make any decisions. We are advisors.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you touched on that.
And not only that, to kind of shape that, we've got our local government, advice that we can offer. Now layer on top of that the national direction, and if that is counter to what's happening locally, how do we square that circle? We're the ones putting all that thinking into the direction of travel, how we fix that service, how we present a different way with increasingly limited funds available to us to do much more. And I think that's probably a challenge we're all seeing.
Yeah.
And that really impacts how we deliver into to residents. And that's why we love talking to people like you, because then we can come to you and say, we need to do this over here. We need to have better resourcing. We need to deliver something quicker. Let's find out what we can do and find out what that impact for the resident really is.
Yeah. And the housing sector, although they don't have the political environment, as in the elected political environment to work within, they are very good at sharing that learning and working together. So if someone's got a process, let's not reinvent that process. Let's share that process, and we can all adopt the same process, but with minor tweaks that works for our residents and our organisation. If you think about the implementation of AWAB's law, phase 1 and phase 2, both local authorities and social housing providers have been working really closely because we all want to do the right thing. We want to make sure that we're triaging hazards in the right way, that we're keeping residents safe, we're keeping residents secure, and we're meeting the needs of the regulator as well. So why not work together?
Yeah, exactly.
David, does it feel more purposeful or frustrating in the public sector? I know you're going to say frustrating. Let's go back to the original question. Does it feel more purposeful in the public sector, do you think? Or is that too simplistic?
How am I going to answer this? It's a
Because
little bit more...
you've done the recent move, so you know it.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it in the right words here. It's... Does it mean more? Well, it's the reason why I changed to come over into the public sector.
Okay.
I've talking to Sarah and talking to you, as you know, over a year ago. It was I wanted to have a shift where I can then start. I started off in public service, as you know. How can I finish off in public sector, in public service, should I say? As you know, so yes, it does. I think when I'm standing there yesterday with a supplier in central London with a team that have gone through a design thinking stage, and I've got occupational therapists and carers saying to me, nobody's ever asked me what I think. Nobody's ever, and I'm actually surfacing what the real problems are and understanding those. That is really quite empowering. Mm-hmm. And that was, and then when you play back at the end of the program, which has taken nearly 2-3 months, and they can actually see what they've done, and they see it in reality. It was amazing, and how powerful it was for them to turn around and say, wow, how much this will help the people that we start to, the kind of vulnerable people that we're there to help. And that is really, really powerful. And it's the reason why I've done the change. Unfortunately, I need to do more of that. I think there's a lot of, there are lots of stakeholder driven programs that I would probably challenge. But from a citizen perspective, things like that with the adult social care program are on, it's enormously powerful, Joe. You can't escape that.
But you get that little squeal of delight inside. At least I do when something goes right. You kind of go, yes, we did. Look at that.
Well, I was hoping Elle didn't say it was a load of. We were not going to bleep it out. It was a load of crap. So it wasn't. They all, every single one of them, and there was 20 odd of them in the room that were actually looking at it, all said, and their words were, well, fabulous. And they said, what's next? I said, you just got to tell everybody you want it, and you're great. And they were all on their phones, all on their emails, sending everything. And so no, that is very, very powerful. I think when you're doing it the other end with private sector, and it's just really kind of driving shareholder value all the time, it's very, very different. I mean, as an entrepreneur, and I'm the majority shareholder, slightly different, but but definitely from the public sector, no, it's great. It is that part's really, really good.
I think that public sector makes the connection between the work and people's lives really visible. So you said that kind of squeal of excitement in local government. You see how the services that you deliver shape communities. And in housing, you know that every single decision you make ultimately affects someone's home safety and sense of security. And I think that's a great deal of responsibility to bear. But it's one of the main reasons I've chosen to continue to work in organisations that've got a public and a social purpose. It's absolutely where I belong.
And if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of wants and needs, literally you are creating that foundation in your roles and in the roles that you've had before, but it's certainly in your current role, that housing security, that is there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something, I grew up in social housing, so I know how important that is. And I don't know if it's subconsciously why I keep coming back to the sector. But, you know, I still see that there will be a place in local government for me in the future as well.
Chief executive somewhere.
I'm going to come back to David's point if I can, because you talking about earlier about breaking it down into the little things, those individual things. That's what I heard when you were describing that situation with your supplier. That's where I feel, particularly where as a sector, we're starting to see the push for real inclusion of AI. Yeah, but what does that mean? What is the problem we're trying to fix? And I often think AI is a solution trying to find a problem. And I think breaking it down to those little things where we go, AI, what do you want to try and fix? Well, AI can support you with that. Let's do that. Oh, that's brilliant. Let's all use it. That's really exciting. If you try and do it with the massive things, we can't address it, and that energy will be lost. And that comes to your other point, David, about over governing. It takes away the energy from actually delivering. There's always governance there, and I'm an advocate for it, but it has to be the right touch for the right time for the right people.
We were talking about AI policies quite recently, and it's probably quite a contentious point of view with Merton, but we're looking at policies and excuse me, and I see a conflicting story with things like that. Is that the policies have got to still be able to support the services that they're supposed to be driving the efficiencies with. It's not just as a big stick to govern somebody by, and that is so important because I've seen it delivered the wrong way, and it causes friction, and it causes pain points, and it causes problems. Whereas if you can use things like those policies and those governance processes that you're talking about, and you're designing with it, but it's still got to be fit for purpose, right? And if you're saying no to every single use case that comes through for the AI policy, it's not fit for purpose. It's all well and good saying, yeah, but I'm safe, but you're actually not, because the council's being affected because you're not having the productivity gains and the efficiency gains that the council needs to keep up the demand. So something has to give, and that's back to leadership, and that's back to people being brave. That's people starting to think differently. And now you're back to the paradoxical problem that I see is it's very difficult to think differently, but that's all you've ever done. You can't say to somebody, right, I want you to think differently now. It doesn't work, right?
We need you, though. We need that different way of thinking. And often we see that. I see it in candidates when they've just stayed within the same council. You think, you know, what's best for you is if you actually go to another environment, learn there, and maybe return to this council, because people do get attached to their communities, but they do need to step outside. But stepping into this sector, what's the one thing that you would advise people, David, before they sort of make the leap like you have done, even though you began your career in service, very different environment, but definitely service running through your career. What would you advise someone to do before they made that leap? What would you say? Hold on, have you thought about this?
I think you've got to be ready for it. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean behavioural. I think you've got to want to do it. And I'm not talking monetary, because that's another element, another bugbear. I mean, the serve the area doesn't pay a great deal of money compared to what the private sector does, especially from the environment where I come from in private equity.
Oh, it's a nightmare. I did a paper for Lottie, and we were talking about enterprise architects, and literally I did a quick search on LinkedIn. Enterprise architects, private sector, 120 grand. The cheapest one that we had was 51 grand, and that was me for Lambeth Council. And that's more than double the salary. Yeah. If you want the talent, how are we going to attract them? I agree.
I think with what you've got, with what we have, and the limited resource. I mean, there's two ways. There's two trains of thought here with this, and from my point of view, you can carry on doing what we're doing, and we don't attract the best talent, which means ultimately we're not getting to the value we need fast enough, or do we take the risk and pay more, or even bring in performance-related pay for people to come in and move faster and get to value quicker, and it's that trade-off. If we can't do it and we stay within the boundaries of the salaries we have to pay, why can't we aim for be strong leaders and bring in younger people to come in to work with us that are just starting? And can we work with them and train with them? And there was a King's College program that I was working with Merton. The guys have now finished. They've done their masters in computer science and moved on. And one of them's actually reaching out to me, asking her to help her mentor for a product related business, a startup that she's going to. So it's being able to track that type of people and bring them in, I think, is another way forward. But you need to be quite strong in what you're doing. I think the leadership has got to be pretty clear and concise in what they want. And then I think that's a potential way forward. But I think we did from a pay perspective, they're the trade-offs.
I've got a different lens to apply to that conversation. If we think about the contact center sector for a second, the amount of AI that our agents now have in their hands they've got live call transcription, they've got summarization at the end of the call, they've got next best action, they've got live knowledge-based articles. Every single call, you have the customer sentiment, you have a quality score. But all of this offer has AI agents in the background that are working. And while it makes people more effective and it makes the advice more consistent, ultimately you will need less of these call center advisors. But think about the talent in your contact centers and how you can reinvest in their skills and how they can fill some of these gaps that we've got across the organization. The AI roles in technology are very new. Let's train our contact center staff up and invest in those people who have been delivering the front line for years. So I've been working with an organization called Hatch Digital, who have been training the contact center advisors up on prompt engineering, on AI agent development, because ultimately, let's just train the people that we know have a good public ethos, are great with engaging with residents, that know what great looks like. Let's give them the skills to move on to other roles in the organisation.
I love that, Sarah. And I also love the fact that you kind of touched on it as well, empathy and that engagement with the individual. You can't, AI that into an individual. That is an intrinsic part of who they are. And so you're actually creating a much stronger employee by adding all of those technical skills as well. So
yeah.
I know we keep talking about agents of AI replacing people, and it is going to drive that productivity, but that human touch is still going to be required.
Absolutely.
Someone phones up in tears because of something. David, do you want to jump in?
No, you're slightly going off piece there, but
we always do.
But the same
Literally,
kind of
we
element.
always do.
One of the big challenges that's happened quite recently, if you think of probably more in the private sector, around search engine optimization, when people are trying to find businesses, that's now been now starting to be eroded by generative engine optimization.
Yeah.
And it was, I know when I was with Time Out, we had to design. We didn't move fast enough of being able to deal with the onset of generative optimization. There was a 25% drop in ad revenue for a global business, which was very substantial. Which what it actually meant by not challenging AI at the right time, lots of people lost their jobs. So AI is definitely coming. You've got to be ready for it. And what Sarah's saying, and it's something that I've built into our innovation strategy at Merton, is what do the jobs of the future look like? And when I say the future, I mean probably next year. Right. So
next week,
and
in some cases.
And how do we train people? How do we get them to think? How could we train them in different things like prompt writing, as Sarah's saying, with the onset of low code engineering now. So how can you do those? And I think if you can do that and bring people along, it's another way of trying to build with the challenge that we've got of trying to attract the right talent coming in. So if we can retain the talent that we've got and upskill the talent, then that natural attrition then is going to hopefully not be too large, that we don't have to keep filling the gap. So I think the quicker we can start thinking that way and training people in the way that Sarah's saying, the more we'll hopefully be able to stop causing bigger problems down the line.
I'm conscious of time. We have talked the hind legs off donkeys and we have run out of time. So we need Darren's quick fire round. And then I'm just going to bring you two back to talk about jobs of the future. I just don't see what else we can possibly do because this was so much fun.
Feels like a conversation we could have a lot more fun inside. I completely agree around
we have to go to the pub with them.
The roles part. This is the section of the show called IT People Are People Too, because Joe loves to ask very, very serious questions and I do not. So, going to take it in turns. There are no buzzers. There's no wrong answers. There's no right answers. Sarah, I'm coming to you first. You're making a cup of tea. Does the milk go in first or second?
I don't drink milk.
Any similar products to that? Love it.
Dairy
Milk
free.
doesn't go in.
That wasn't the answer you were
doesn't go
looking
in.
for, Darren, was it?
There's no right or wrong answers.
Yeah, good point.
So you
Thank
don't
you,
have a cup of tea? Do
David.
you not even have a cup of tea?
Black tea, black coffee.
Black coffee,
wow.
I'm well on board.
'Cause I was going
David.
to say, I would have to be checking out your Irish
Ask,
roots
ask
there.
her who
I'm not
makes the
being funny.
espressos first thing in the morning.
I actually
Would it be
told
you,
someone
David?
this story today because David wakes up at 5 o'clock every morning, and the first thing he does is go downstairs, lets the dogs out, and then brings me an espresso up to bed.
Oh.
Good man. Well
I
done.
think David and I are often on texting each other at that time as well, and we have to remember not to.
Are you
But
the
I do
other
that-
women? The other women in this relationship?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
We all
My
do
wife
remember
is
what
loves him.
quickfire means.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So,
Yeah, it's Joe, Darren. You know what Joe's like.
David, camping or glamping?
Camping.
Ooh, see,
SAS.
glamping for me. Yeah. Sarah, what's the most indispensable app on your phone?
Her phone.
Aura at the minute because I've just got an
Vinted.
Aura ring. Vinted.
Vinted is the number one app on her phone. That's why half
David?
of my clothes are going. Sorry, Darren.
Favourite subject at school?
Physics.
Cool. Sarah, favourite teacher at school?
Mrs. Stevenson.
Ooh, shout out to Mrs. Stevenson. David, who is the best Batman?
Oh, blimey. Oh, blimey. Oh, what is... I was going to say the first one that used to be on the TV. No, George
Adam-
Clooney.
George Clooney.
I think the first one, I think you're right. I don't know his name.
Yeah, I
but the
can't
first
remember
one.
his name. That's why I came
Adam
up with an
West.
answer.
Adam West.
Adam West. That's
it.
the one.
Adam West.
Yes.
The fact you knew that,
That
Darren.
reminds me, if I'm a kid who's brought up in the 70s. I was born in 69, you see, so I brought up in
No,
the
72,
70s,
I'm
which-
afraid. But
Yeah.
I'm with you.
70.
Adam West was a lot of fun. George Clooney, not so much.
No, I just
right.
came up with a name.
Question to you both. Sarah, I'm
We
going to
can
come to
edit
you
that.
first. What was the best bit of career advice you ever had?
I think I had one from Merton this morning. I think it was give up.
Oh,
No, I'm joking. Best bit of advice. I'll help you, Sarah. Going through my parachute regiment selection process, I was told every single day I wasn't good enough, and I should leave. I had that for 6 months.
that gave you a real determination. They knew what they were doing.
That was the best career advice I ever gave me, and I was the first one to pass out from the
I had
136 of us. There were 16 that finished.
Excellent. I had a similar one at school where I said I wanted to go and work at the BBC, and they said, "Why, as a cleaner?" And I thought, "That's it. That's it."
The reason
I think for me, it's pay people their worth. I once didn't get a pay rise, found another job and resigned, and then they offered me 15 grand to stay. I should have got that in the first place, and I
Yeah, you
left.
should have done. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. That was IT People Are People Too. Thank you very much for playing. See you all next time. Joe, back to you.
Well, this is amazing. I love this. I've just absolutely loved this episode. And if we're recording it in a year's time, I think we would be having a very different conversation around David's impact in the public sector. And Sarah's had a lot more experience working with her current employer. So I think but I want them to come back. I want to come back next week and talk about, or the next episode, and talk about jobs of the future. I think there's a whole episode in that we should probably do. Darren, what's your one takeaway from today's podcast?
Today, it's just break everything down. Listening to David, talking to David, break it down to where we can actually make it useful and still feel the joy of succeeding and make it exciting. Thank you, David.
Sarah, what's one takeaway you want to give our listeners?
One takeaway is never forget empathy for people, whether that is your employees, your colleagues, or your residents. Always have empathy.
Love it. Mr. Catling?
Be brave. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it.
Excellent. So, dear listener, I've given her a name now. It's Ashley Bernard at City. She does listen to us. So, shout out to our listener. Thank you very much. I had a wonderful podcast. Thank you very much. I've learnt so much from today's episode, and we'll see you next time on Have You Raised a Ticket? Thank you very much.
Take care, all.
Thanks for the invite.